What's up, Brokers Playbook Nation? Welcome back to the Brokers Playbook podcast. In today's episode, we take over the Jas Takhar podcast in our continued efforts to try to bring you more and more value inside of the Brokers Playbook community. In this conversation, Jas breaks down how the questions that you ask yourself are the end result of what you get out of them. How every single day you shape your own mindset and ultimately the quality of your life and your business. If you've ever felt stuck, behind schedule, or unsure about why things aren't clicking yet, this is the podcast for you. We're here to challenge the way you think and help you start asking better questions. Enjoy the episode.
Because I was very scared to be in front of the camera. If you're an insurance broker, why did you get into insurance? Don't envision the whole world that you're putting this post out to. Just one viewer. Once you do the recording for 20 minutes, you can take out little clips. You can take out the audio, obviously putting it on podcast platforms, but you throw that into AI, and now AI can rip out a bunch of emails.
For a newbie and trying to get a CRM together, what would be your first Instagram post? What would you say?
All right, look, for me, when it comes to content, I want you to understand first and foremost that you want to be as authentic as possible. And I know that's a buzzword, but what does it really mean when it comes to content? I am a strong believer that you shouldn't be reading off a script. Why? Because it doesn't come off as authentic. Just have some pointers on what you want to touch on. That's number one. Number two, I also understand that it is tough for a lot of people to put yourself out there on video or even just audio. It's not easy. I don't think your first post should be anything around just an image, because you're kind of hiding behind that image. You're not allowing other people to connect with you. And the fastest way that humans connect with humans is if we see the person and hear the person. I know this so much. In terms of it being true, it's not just me pontificating. It's not me just telling you something that I read in a book. I went through this myself. In fact, my first 17 to 18 podcast episodes 5-6 years ago were all just audio, because I was very scared to be in front of the camera. And then on top of that, the first interview I did for that podcast was with a gentleman named Ryan Serhant, and big guy in real estate in New York. Flew down there. We needed to put it on camera, but if you watch that video, I think it's 37 minutes long. I never make eye contact with the camera because I was nervous. I was scared, going through all that garbage and stuff that goes on the 6 inches between the ears, right? It wasn't until I kept just doing it, and for the first 10 episodes, maybe after that, I would make a little bit of eye contact, and then maybe a little bit longer. And over time, I just got comfortable with it. Your first post, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, okay, in any relationship-driven sales, in my opinion, the easiest one to do, the one that you don't need a script for, is just tell the one viewer, don't envision the whole world that you're putting this post out to, just one viewer, why you got into the industry you're in. So if you're an insurance broker, why did you get into insurance sales? What made you do that? See, it's your own story. It's very authentic. It's very unique to you. Don't end it off with, this is very important, don't end it off with, and by the way, call me. Just put out your story. We connect with stories. It's why we read books. It's why we watch movies. It's why we watch shows on Netflix and watch it for hours and days and do marathons, because we get bought into the story. Allow other people to buy into your story.
Is it too late to start podcasting now?
The short answer, no. In fact, most people who start a podcast, even in this day and age, at the time of this recording, end of 2025 almost, most people who start one, 90% in fact is the number, don't get past their first 10 episodes. So it might sound like to you that there's a million people doing podcasts around you. Like, oh my God, everyone I know has a podcast. Look, they might have started it and they got really, on the hype. They bought all the new equipment and did a sign and all that kind of stuff. Did 3 episodes and then gave up. So here it is. Longevity beats urgency. I do not need you to rush into doing this, but just make sure that you do it every week. Yes, do a podcast episode once a week. There is nothing, in my opinion, that will allow you to build authority for free. That's the most important part here. Podcasting is pretty much free. You don't have to do all the fancy stuff that you see right now or that you're listening to right now, okay? And what I mean by that is you could just do it on Zoom. You could do it by yourself or you could do it with a guest. I strongly urge you to do it with a guest at the start for sure, because you don't have to do all the heavy lifting yourself. You have someone else to lean into. So no, it's not too late. Podcasting to me is a very deep medium that you can build trust and authority. And here's the neat thing about podcasting. If you can go 20 minutes, you don't need to do a 3-hour podcast like Joe Rogan. If that's what you like, then go long form. It allows you to do that, go deep into conversation. But even if you can go 20 minutes, you can make it very strategic from the perspective of getting more content out of it. See, once you do the recording for 20 minutes, you can take out little clips, you can take out the audio, obviously putting it on podcast platforms, but you throw that into AI, and now AI can rip out a bunch of emails for you that you can send to your CRM. Right? So it all gets interconnected, but you got to understand that it's a strategic long game asset and not a quick viral vehicle. Like, just because you do a podcast, it's not going to go viral. Who cares? If it does, great. But if it doesn't, just know that you're going to be taking out other pieces of content, and you have the ability to really build sustainable authority.
Can you do educational events with others? Or does it dilute the impact?
I strongly believe you should do this with others, right? Like, collaboration is huge. I know, again, that's a buzzword, but for me, 80% of our events are done with other people as guests. Why? For a couple of reasons. One, less heavy lifting. Right? It's not just me or my business partner or someone on my team doing it on their own, right? So you have somebody else, and people that are in the audience, and this is their feedback, it's not just me making this up, they like the banter back and forth, right? They like the stories that you as the host can tell and the guests can tell as well, right? And so I think it just enhances the impact, right? Here's the other real reason I also like to do it with guests, is that I use it as a lead generation tool. The guest has hopefully a CRM, or at least people in his phone that he or she can invite to the event. And so what you want to do there is find partners to do events with that share your audience but are not in your service. Meaning, if you're a real estate agent, don't do it with a real estate agent. Do the event with a financial advisor. Like, the first one that everyone thinks about as a real estate agent, which is good, but you don't have to stop there, is a mortgage broker, right? The mortgage broker also has people that he or she knows. But why not do one with a financial advisor? Do one with a lawyer. Do one with an accountant. You're an insurance broker. Do one with a real estate agent. So then you guys can promote the event together, get more bums in the seats, okay? Have an event that's a little easier from a logistical perspective and cost perspective. You don't need to blow the bank here and rent out a massive banquet hall. You can do it in one of the 2 offices. You can actually do the event. You don't have to do it in one in person. That's my favorite, but you can also do it on a webinar, like online on Zoom, which can then scale out to people right across the world. And what it allows for is that person to bring their audience. Look, I've done thousands of events in my 21-year career as a real estate agent. Even in car sales, we put on events. Anytime a new car came out, massive event was put on to get people to just come in. We didn't even care if they bought a car. Like, obviously, if they did, that would be awesome, but we weren't actually even silly enough. Shout out to the owners and the managers at that time. I was a really young guy. I was probably 18, 19 years old at that time. I didn't really understand marketing at a high level. Like, I believe, like, I do now, or the experience that I have now. But they never pushed us as the sales guys to sell the car. It was just like shaking hands and kissing babies, getting to find out what people's lives are like, what's going on in their life. What was the objective there? The real objective was that we were hoping that they were going to tell a friend. That's what happened. Did we do deals a month later, 3 months later, a year later with the people that showed up? Yes, but that wasn't the main objective at that time. It was to re-engage with people, something different, not just calling them into a showroom to sell them a car. It was like, we got food, we got sushi, we got martini bars, all that kind of stuff. Come by, let's say what's up. And then that leads into deals.
It's all about finding your tribe and making them your target audience.
100%, because it's a lot easier to do business with people that already know you and like you. And if they're part of your tribe, they probably have some level of trust with you. Maybe if 10 was like absolute trust, maybe they're at even a 5, but they definitely check off on the first 2. They know you and like you. That's why they're part of your tribe. That to me is a niche specialization. That's what I've used. I've used the people that already know me, like me. It could be from personal relationships. It could be from social media. It could be from the events that I go to and speak at, or that events that I just go to and meet other people. I've actually used that as my highest level from a marketing perspective to do deals, which is the CRM. So yes, you don't have to farm an area specifically. It's a term that we use a lot in real estate, but I know others use it in other industries as well. Because here's the thing, right? First and foremost, you got to just understand, you're not going to get all 30 million people in Canada, all 400 million people in the States, right? You're not going to get the 7 billion people, 8 billion people on planet Earth. So when you have a tribe, and it might be of 10 people, you might put out a video on social media and get 10 people who view it and like it. Start there. Thank them for liking your video. Send them a message, because 10 turns into 20 and 20 turns into 40. Like, the compounding effect takes over. I think we're about to, my team just told me recently, it's not me flexing, guys. I think we're close to like 50,000 followers on one of our platforms, Instagram. I started with 0. And then for the longest time, I think I was at like 800 people or 4,000 people at one time. It just started to compound over time. And I got to tell you, like, those 50,000 people, maybe 1,000 of them came from like an ad that I ran. So 49,000 people, okay, found value in what I was putting out, and that value being not selling them stuff, not on social media, right? I go into sales mode, for a lack of a better word, when I'm speaking to people one-on-one. But when I'm speaking to the masses, I'm just educating. And some people like it, some people don't. Some people like my style, and majority of the planet doesn't. Hence why I have 50,000 and not 8 billion. And so once you have that mindset that you're not going to connect with everyone, when you don't connect with someone, or vice versa, someone doesn't connect with you, they just go in the bucket of, they don't connect with me. That doesn't mean that you don't have a tribe that does already, right? So I think we get a lot of, like, caught up, and this is just based on a lot of questions I get, like, what niche should I work? I think the first niche you work is the people that already know you and like you, and then build from there.
What are the 5 questions?
The 5 questions. I get this a lot now. It's kind of cool. A pretty direct question. I like that. First, before I give you the 5 questions, I think it's important to mention why I speak about these 5 questions being really the doorway, the gateway to doing more deals. Instead of trying to pitch people where you just go on this rant on everything that you or your team or your product and or service is good and why it's all good, is I like to first find out if there's an actual want or need for the service. Because if there's not, why waste all that time trying to convince someone? You're better off just moving on to another person and understanding the person that is not ready right now. That might just be it. They're not ready right now. Now, they might also never be ready and they don't want you to be in contact. That's okay. At least you didn't waste an hour trying to pitch them. And so this is the mindset from going from pitching to being a consultant. And the way that you be a consultant is by asking open-ended questions. Here's your 5 questions. What? Where? When? how, and I think the most important is why. Okay? Are you going to be able to use all 5 questions in that consultation, that clarity call, that appointment? No, but you want to get to as many as possible. And the main reason for that, again, is to understand that when you ask what, where, when, how, and why, you generally don't elicit close-ended answers. So they don't answer yes or no. The prospect gets to speak. And it's so important. It's the old adage, right? We have one mouth, but we have 2 ears. So listen twice as much as that you speak. You've heard this before, but this is when it really matters, because you want them to speak about what they want to accomplish, where the pain is, where they're looking for clarity, where is their problem. Then, and only then, can you possibly come up with a solution. And sometimes the solution is you can't help them. The amount of time, I'm talking thousands now in my 31-year career, where I just ended the consultation, like, I can't help you, Joe. I don't have anything to help you. I would be selling you on something, and it would be a bag of lies. And so I can't help you. And if you want to stay in touch, awesome. Here's what I wanted to really get across to you. The amount of times Joe called me a year later and introduced me to Jane. Thousands. Why? Because I wasn't trying to pitch the guy. I asked him the questions. Hey, what are you trying to accomplish? This is how you use these, right? What are you trying to accomplish? Why is that something you're trying to accomplish? That's why it's one of the most important, because that's where you kind of get the motivation. How have you done this in the past? How do you foresee this happening, the process going? When is the time frame for you to get this done? Where are you thinking about moving? Like, you'll have to figure out how to use it in your own industry, but start with those 5 questions.
Thanks for joining the Brokers Playbook podcast today. If you want to go deeper with Jas on how to apply what this thinking is, he'll be joining us inside of the community for an exclusive live webinar on January 22nd, where he'll walk through his 5 pillars of building a strong and sustainable business.